Here is something almost nobody knows. We have never seen half the moon. It rocks very slightly as it travels, so a little more than half has come into view over the centuries. 59%. There is a margin that was never quite shown. Keep that margin in mind because this placement lives in it. The moon in Virgo is the one that notices the small remaining part, the bit not accounted for, the gap between what was done and what could have been done, which is never zero. Every chart has a moon, and the moon describes your route back to steadiness after something has knocked you off it. For some people, that route runs through another person. For some, it runs through an explanation. Here it runs through a task, small, immediate, and finishable tonight. And here's the thing most descriptions get backwards. This placement is not hunting for what is wrong with you. It already found it in the first 10 minutes, and it decided not to mention it. Most of what it notices is never said out loud. What gets said instead is an offer. Let me look at it. I can fix that. Have you eaten? The noticing comes out sideways as service because service was always the safer channel, and it has had a great deal of practice. So the question worth answering is not whether the standard is high, it is where the standard came from and why, after all these years, it still only points in one direction. That comes later in the reading. Start instead with what this placement does better than almost anyone alive. Something lands badly, and within moments this placement has already begun sorting. What here is mine to carry? What is theirs? What can still be corrected tonight? The sorting itself is the comfort, well before anything gets solved. Which is why this small task works when nothing else does. A drawer emptied, a surface cleared, one thing put right at a moment when the large thing cannot be. That is not avoidance. It is the nervous system finding a place where effort still reaches. And the accuracy is a form of care, though it rarely reads as one. This placement remembers which thing you cannot eat, which week is hard for you, what you said you were dreading. It is paying a kind of attention most people never receive from anyone. Most of that work is invisible, on purpose. The thing was handled before you knew it needed handling. No announcement. This placement has a strong instinct that help which has to be noticed is not quite help. Now the part underneath. Somewhere early, this placement worked out that being useful was reliable and being simply present was not. Usefulness could be produced on demand. Affection could not. So it became fluent in the one it could control. That worked, and it still works, and it has a limit built into it. There's one thing this arrangement cannot deliver, no matter how well the work is done, because it is not the kind of thing that can be earned at all. The last chapter of this reading is about that one thing. Here is the origin of the standard. Early on, something in the room was unsteady, and you noticed that when your own part was done properly, the unsteadiness arrived a little later. So you made your part flawless. It was a strategy, and for a young person, it was a good one. People assume the measure is aimed at them. It almost never is. Others get a generous reading and the benefit of the doubt. The full instrument, the one with no tolerance in it at all, is reserved for one person and has been since childhood. So a private tally runs, not of what others owe, of what you failed to catch. The thing said clumsily 4 years ago, the one you should have seen coming. None of it expires because nothing on that list was ever formally forgiven. And this is the exile. Not banishment by anyone else. You send yourself out of your own ease and set the terms of return so high that they are almost never met. Rest becomes something to be qualified for rather than something available. The anxiety everyone attaches to this placement is downstream of that, not the cause. If the terms of belonging are performance, then every ordinary day contains a small examination, and the results are never quite final. The cost is not visible from outside, which is part of the problem. From outside, this looks like a person who is coping extremely well. Inside, the standard has quietly moved again, and the ground gained this year no longer counts. This placement will not tell you it loves you as often as you would like. It will instead notice that your shoes are worn through and quietly do something about it. The declaration is in the doing, and it is meant just as seriously. In repair, it is genuinely excellent. It does not need a long apology or a scene. Name the specific thing, agree what changes, and it will move on without dragging the matter behind it for a month. Precision is what lets it forgive quickly. The failure mode is not the sharp remark, it is the withdrawal. When it has nothing useful to offer, or fears the thing it noticed would wound you, it steps back and goes correct and polite. It goes quiet to spare you. The quiet is what lands as coldness. The moon in Pisces, opposite this, handles the same problem from the other end. It lets everything in and sorts nothing. Virgo sorts everything and lets little in. Each looks at the other and sees something it cannot make itself do. What it needs is unglamorous. Ask directly what it noticed, and then receive the answer without flinching. It has spent years editing itself down to what it judged you could stand to hear. Being able to say the whole thing is the rarest gift it gets. And thank it out loud for the invisible work. Not generally, specifically naming the thing it did that you were not supposed to notice. That single sentence does more here than any amount of general reassurance. Mastery for this placement is almost impossible to put in a report because its signature achievement is an absence, the failure that did not happen. The flaw caught at the stage where fixing it took an hour rather than a quarter. That makes it the load-bearing thread in a team far more often than anyone records. Remove it and the pattern comes apart within a fortnight. While it is there, everything simply appears to work, which is exactly why the contribution stays invisible for years at a time. It is also the placement most likely to actually enjoy craft for its own sake. The second draft, the tightened joint. Work that gets quietly better on the 90th repetition rather than duller. That patience is genuinely uncommon. Where it breaks is under authority that is careless, not authority that is hard. Hard is fine and often welcome. Careless is unbearable, because being made to produce work below your own measure attacks the exact thing this placement uses to stay steady. And it does not usually rebel, it absorbs. It fixes the careless decision silently, again, and the fixing never enters the record. 6 months of that and something goes flat that is very slow to come back. The correction is to let one thing be visibly imperfect and observe that the building stays up. Not as a discipline, as evidence. This placement changes its mind through evidence and almost never through reassurance. So here's the thing that cannot be earned, and it is the thing this placement has been working toward by the one route that does not lead there. Being acceptable while the work is unfinished. No version of doing more produces it. The exile ends by being let back in, not by finally meeting the terms. And since the one who set the terms is you, you are also the only one who can suspend them. That is worse news and better news at the same time. The practice is small and it is difficult. Stop one thing while it is still slightly wrong and stay in the room with the wrongness. An hour. Long enough to learn that the wrongness is survivable, which is information the tally has never once collected. Come back to the moon for a moment. It rocks as it travels, and over the centuries a little more of it has come into view. 59%. Not by correcting itself, simply by continuing to move and being watched patiently enough. And out in the direction of Virgo, there is a cluster of galaxies whose gravity is drawing our entire galaxy toward it. We are being pulled somewhere, steadily, by something we did not arrange and do not maintain. You learned very early that the safest way to be kept was to be useful. It was a good strategy, and it has carried real love in it. You are also allowed to be at the table on the days you bring nothing, and that was true the whole time.